Good morning, guys, or should I say good evening by the time you're seeing this. I really felt led of the Lord to share more of what God showed me from His Word this morning, because the topic was something that has sort of been on my mind. It's a topic that I think we need to give more heed to, and in different ways. Okay, I don't want this particular thing to be misused, especially against somebody who's been through abuse of any kind. In particular, not just sexual, physical, but also verbal that comes with it. Because that's what this deals with. You know, when I read this morning's devotions out of 1 Samuel 1, I could empathize with Hannah and how she longs for a child. And although, yes, I would love a child, and right now can't have one, just because I'm 49 years old doesn't mean I'm not able to. I want to make that clear. But Hannah's facing a very stressful situation. You have Hannah, her husband Elkanah, and then Elkanah's second wife, Peninnah. Can we say pain in the butt? And she was that. And that's what this morning's devotions were dealing with. And when I was reading it, I got to thinking about James chapter 3, which I want to share with you. And also something that I posted quite a while back that I think is very badly needed. And I want to share it with you. A while back, a couple of years ago, let's put it this way, I did a post entitled, I Have a Big Mouth. And I'm going to reinstitute that post for the big mouth syndrome, which is what I'm calling this vlog. And in this post I did a couple years ago, there's a verse here from Psalm 141, verse 3. It says, "Set a watch, O Lord, before my mouth. Keep the door of my lips." And I think this must have been, as well as this morning's passage, what James was referring to when he was going after the whole issue of the tongue. And I want to read James chapter 3, in particular verses, I'm going to do from verse 4 on, okay? Because I think it's necessary. He says here, or, "Behold the ships, which though they be so great, and are driven of fierce winds, yet they are turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth." This, he's referring to the captain of the ship. But this is the crucial part from verse 5 on. "Even so the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. For every kind of beasts, and of birds, and of serpents, and of things in the sea is tamed, and hath been tamed of mankind. But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. Therewith we bless we God, even the Father, and therewith curse we men, which are made after the similitude of God. Out of the mouth proceedeth blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not so to be." I was thinking of this passage as I was reading this morning's devotions, and I was thinking of this post, and I want to go into it a little bit with you because I think it's important. Have any of you ever heard of an old TV show called The Honeymooners? I have. I used to watch it. And this was a very interesting show, to say the least. The show was about these four couples, Ralph and Alice Kramden, and Ed and Trixie Norton. And in particular, uh, these four characters, which were played by brilliant people, the late Jackie Gleason, Audrey Meadows, Art Carney, and Joyce Randolph. I know Jackie and Audrey are gone. I think Joyce has gone. I know Art, I believe, has gone too. They may all be gone now. This show was around in the 50s, and it was really ahead of its time. It centered around these characters, and the premise of the show was always how Ralph would have some type of misadventure through some get-rich-quick scheme or some other plan to be successful, which would always get him in trouble. Most of the time, it would involve him saying and or doing something that would get him in some type of fix, especially saying something. And in his fit of consternation and reasoning over it was, over everything happening, especially, he would come to realize and he would say, I have a big mouth, which he did. And ultimately, in the end, in each situation, with the help of Alice and the others, he would come to terms with his faults, in particular his big mouth, as well as his pride, and not only admit what he did was wrong, but he would correct it and ultimately do the right thing. And there were some really funny episodes, I will give you that. You know, he was always wanting to get ahead. He was always, because he cared about Alice. He wanted the best for her, you know. And if you're interested, look up the show online, you know, or, you know, Google it or on YouTube. See what I mean. It's absolutely hilarious. And that's just what what I'm sharing with you today is about. It's about allowing God control of what we say, whether it comes from our mouths or what we post or type online. I want to ask you this and be honest. Have you ever said something, whether it's verbally or online, that you later really regretted? Have you ever given into, you know, that sharing that juicy little bit of gossip? Or you said something unkind to somebody that you really felt awful over later on? I know I have. Way too many times I've allowed my big mouth and or my angry heart to say or type something really rotten and nasty. And I would later realize, you know, it hurt someone. And I would really deeply regret it. And first and foremost, I'd have to ask God to forgive me of it. I knew the damage is already done, and all I could do was seek that person out and ask their forgiveness and move on. And I've also been the victim of it. I've been the victim of unkind words. Not too long ago, because I speak out on the issue of the sanctity of life, that I am pro-life and I'm very much against abortion. And I believe that marriage is to be between one man and one woman. I had somebody say something very nasty to me when it came to the issue of abortion. They basically said that I had no right to talk about it because I didn't have children. I've never been pregnant. And I flipped out. And I'll be honest, those seconds before I said anything, I had to ask God to help me control my anger. And I flipped, but with God's help, I flipped out properly. I let this person know they had no standing in saying that to me, that they were uncalled for in saying it. And this has been going on. I've been getting little digs about this for years in my marriage. And I just let this person know I wasn't going to put up with it. I said, there are those who are like me, who physically can't have children and want children. And when somebody takes the life of an unborn child, when they go into a Planned Parenthood or a place that specializes in abortion, they snuff out that life, and that could be a life that a very loving parents, a mother and father, husband and wife, would gladly welcome into their home. I know if I had the opportunity, I would. And I want to make it clear, I'm not saying I physically can't have children. But I'm saying if the opportunity were to present itself to have a human child, whether by adoption or on our own with God's help, that child, if it were adopted, he or she were adopted, it would be gladly welcomed like it was our own physical flesh and blood. But in this, as I read this morning's devotions, I could empathize with Hannah. I could empathize with what she's going through because she's got this pain in the behind, Penina, lording over her the fact that she has children. Bear in mind, mistake number one that Elkanah made was marrying Penina to begin with. And I know culturally it was considered acceptable because he wanted children. But it was not an excuse if he would have trusted the Lord. I think Hannah was trying to trust the Lord. And she gets to this point where she goes to the tabernacle. If you read further into for Samuel 1, you see she goes before the Lord and pleads with the Lord to have a child. She says, if you grant me a son, I will give him back to you. And she did. As I was reading that and reading James chapter 3, again, I saw how important it is to be so extra careful as a redeemed child of God, to be careful in what I say and what I type, and that I need to seek the Lord daily and ask him to help me guard my mouth, to be in charge of what I say, both in person and online, so that I don't say or do anything that will dishonor him. I'll be honest, this is easier said than done, people. And in many instances, I do screw up. But when I do, I ask God for forgiveness, I confess it and repent of it, and I ask him for help, especially in regards to Proverbs 15, verse 1. And that's something I want to share with you before I close this. Proverbs 15:1 is something very powerful, I think, and it sums up everything in this area perfectly. It says, a soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. And I very much agree. There's been so many times where I have just shot off my big mouth because I'm angry at somebody, because I am hurt and enraged at the insensitivity of somebody else, and I go and say and do something insensitive too. But then there are moments where I'm ticked off, and I go to the Lord and I let the Lord know how ticked off I am. And I'm glad I can do that with the Lord because the Lord hears me and understands. And when I learn to calm down, and I learn to look at whatever is said in a different light, if I still find it hurtful, I ask the Lord to help me respond in a way that honors him. And he always does. And sometimes he also shows me you're reading more into it than there is. But in those moments, he helps me to say what he wants me to say. And my prayer for all of you as I end this post is that you seek the Lord every day in what you say and do. Ask for his guidance in what you say, whether it's in person or online, and ask yourself, is what I'm about to type or say verbally going to give glory and honor to God? Does it follow Philippians 4, verse 8, which says this? Finally, my brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things, I want to reread this, excuse me. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue and if there be any praise, think on these things. I'm going to also go as far as to say, not just think, but do them, act on them. Ask yourself, is what I'm about to say online, what I'm about to post online, or what I'm about to say to this person, does it follow Philippians 4, verse 8? Is my response to this out of righteous anger with love, or am I just plain lashing out? I really challenge all of you today. I challenge every one of you that's reading this, that's listening to this, to think about that, to do as not only Psalm 141 verse 3 states, Proverbs 15 verse 1, and Philippians 4 verse 8, but also James chapter 3 verses 5 through 11. Read all of James chapter 3 to see what I mean, and ask for help. Ask his help in controlling your tongue. Control what you type, and to give you the words needed to bring grace to those who need to hear it. Ask God to help you steer away from any gossip or saying anything hurtful or nasty about or to anyone, so that the words you speak, whether they're in person or online, they'll bring glory and honor to the Lord. And ask him to help you remember this one important thing. There's an old saying, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. And I also reach out to those who don't know the Lord, who don't know Christ, to make the decision today to come to know him. I'm going to post a link on here. But I challenge you, if you don't know Christ, make him your Savior today. Let him clean your heart and make you new. I've got to get going. I'm currently on the phones right now for Choice 1, even though I haven't gotten a phone call stress yet. But I wanted to share this with you guys, and I really encourage you. Think before you say something. And if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. After all, we've all got a big mouth, don't we? Bye for now.